Welcome to the programme. The sun's fallen in Gaza as another bleak night under Israeli blockade takes hold. Israel says it won't let the humanitarian situation there become critical, but Palestinians and aid agencies say it already is. Within the next 24 hours, around 1 million Gazans will find themselves without clean drinking water. Already, they've run out of fuel. Israel's Prime Minister, Ehud Olmert, says so long as Hamas controls Gaza, he won't let up.
We have no intention of making their lives easy. And as long as the hardships there are greater, providing there are not any humanitarian blows, not in hospitals, not in clinics, not with young children, not with the helpless people, we will not allow it. But in no way will we let them live comfortable and pleasant lives. As far as I'm concerned, all the residents of Gaza can go on foot and have no fuel for cars.
The head of the Arab League is calling for international intervention and says Israel's actions in Gaza constitute a war crime.
We all have to stand united in rejecting this attack and in deciding that Israel is not interested in peace. This is a war crime.
But whatever words the politicians and diplomats use to describe the situation in Gaza, the reality facing Palestinians is desperate. Jackie Rowland reports.
The people of Ascula awoke to a nasty surprise. Raw sewage flowing down the street and lapping at their doorsteps. It's a graphic consequence of the power cuts in Gaza. The nearby sewage pump station has no electricity, so the dirty water and excrement has nowhere to go except into the street. Dirty, filthy, stinking water, up to 20 centimetres deep in some places, flooding the streets, flooding the fields, flooding an orange grove. And the fear now is that if power isn't restored to the pump soon, the water could start to seep into people's houses, causing a real public health worry. This is where the sewage should be pumped to, a treatment plant a couple of kilometres away. Here too, the machinery stands motionless. No electricity means no way of purifying the dirty water, so it just stagnates.
50% of the wells don't have electricity nor fuel. And in in a few hours and tomorrow, we'll have around 80% of the wells will not run because we will not have electricity nor fuel in those plants.
For the sick in particular, everyday existence is becoming increasingly grim. This is Zahra Al-Nazli. A respiratory illness leaves her dependent on oxygen, but that too is kept out of Gaza by the Israeli embargo.
I am scared to run out of oxygen. I'm afraid that something will go wrong during the night or in the morning, and my machine will stop working. Sometimes I feel myself choking like a strangled chicken.
Hospitals in Gaza now have enough diesel to power their generators for a matter of hours, a day at most. Doctors will soon be faced with difficult choices, which life-saving machines to switch off. Will it be these dialysis machines, or maybe incubators at the Children's Hospital? It's an unenviable dilemma, making decisions over life and death. Jackie Rowland, Al Jazeera, Gaza.
Well, in the last few minutes, Israel's Defence Minister Ehud Barak has said he'll allow vital fuel and medical supplies into Gaza starting on Tuesday. Well, I'm joined now by Christopher Gunness, who's spokesperson for the United Nations Relief Agency, who joins me now live from our Jerusalem studio. Thank you for joining us, sir. Is this aid that could arrive on Tuesday, will that satisfy the aid agencies like yourselves trying to do your job there in Gaza?
Well, let me say that this on-off, drip, 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 completely locked down one day, the door slightly ajar the next, makes it very difficult for a human development agency like UNRWA to fulfill the mandates given to it by the international community. We are charged with bringing relief and social services, schools, medical facilities. We are charged by the international community in bringing these things, and it makes it extremely difficult if we do have this on-off strategy from the Israelis. So, of course, I suppose we have to be grateful for whatever they allow in, because at least it allows us to partially fulfill our mandates. But, let's not focus on the immediate. Let's talk about the wider needs of Gaza. We have suspended $93 million worth of construction projects in Gaza. Without that, the sorts of scenes that Jackie was describing in her report are likely to be more widespread. We have to get all sorts of materials for our education programs. So this hand on the tap and allowing drips in now, drips in later, perhaps not, that's not what we need. What we need is a sustained opening of the crossings. Only that will allow UNRWA and other humanitarian agencies to fulfill its mandates on the ground.
But in terms of right now, how long have you got before you actually stop your operation because you can't go on because of the situation?
Well, before this announcement by the Israeli Defense Minister, we were saying that we would have to suspend our food distribution to some 860,000 recipients of our food aid on Wednesday or Thursday, in part because we are not able to get in the plastic bags to pack up our foods to put in our food parcels, and there's also been a severe shortage of fuel. So let's wait and see what comes in before we hail this from the rooftops. We have to see what is allowed in and what it means on the ground. But our fear has certainly been that we would have to suspend our operations, our food distribution operations, let me make clear, on Wednesday or Thursday.
So how long will it take then for you to get up and running if and when the blockade is lifted? How long does that take physically?
Well, I'm afraid, you're asking the question, how long is a piece of string? Let's see what the Israelis allow in. If, as we want, we see full access, then, perhaps we could actually pick ourselves up quite quickly. We have food stocks, for example, partial food stocks, should I say, for 2 months. UNRWA's food package gives about 2/3 of the daily nutrient requirements for the recipients. They need to supplement our food aid with fresh produce such as meat, vegetables, dairy products, eggs. These things have got to get in if we're to ward off food insecurity. Already there are signs that, for example, the World Health Organization is saying that the incidence of rickets in children appears to be increasing. So yes, we can get our operation up and running. What we need is a far wider access. We need to see the economy. We need to see foodstuffs in the shops so that our food package can be supplemented. At the moment, we estimate that only about half of what needs to be commercially available is actually there. So we're by no means out of the wood just because of this announcement by Mr. Barak.
Well, we shall see what transpires on Tuesday, but for the moment, Christopher Gunnis in Jerusalem, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, to Lebanon now, where a grenade explosion has destroyed several vehicles in Beirut. The attack damaged a car belonging to the wife of a senior military lawyer. Another car was set on fire as a result of the blast. No one was injured. The latest violence comes a day after a parliamentary session to elect a new president was postponed for the 13th time. At least the Tamil Tigers claim to have killed at least 3 policemen in southern Sri Lanka. It comes as 15 rebels and 2 soldiers have been killed during fighting in Sri Lanka's northern Jaffna Peninsula. Although there hasn't been any comment from the Tigers, the military says nearly 90 fighters have been killed there in the past 3 days. Military attacks have escalated after the government formally ended a 6-year truce with the Tigers last week. Pakistani President Pervez Musharraf has pledged to hold free elections as he begins a tour of Europe aimed at winning international support. But he's expected to face tough questions over his rule, his handling of the increasing violence in Pakistan and the assassination of opposition leader Benazir Bhutto. Mark Seddon reports.
President Pervez Musharraf arrived in Brussels at the beginning of a packed 8-day European tour. Pakistan's delayed elections, due now next month, and security may be top of the agenda for Europe's leaders, but Pakistan's strongman has a different set of priorities. He isn't impressed with what he sees as the West's obsession with democracy.
I, whether I'm an army man, do believe very strongly in democracy and human rights. But may I humbly suggest that having an obsession with them, and other than having an obsession with human rights and democracy in accordance with your own environment, is where one differs.
Following the assassination of Benazir Bhutto, Musharraf has come to reassure Europe that he is in control of the security situation. But critics say he's simply not moving far or fast enough to restore Pakistan's damaged democracy. Ahead of what are likely to be more stormy meetings with the European Parliament, President Musharraf has rejected that his government is in any way linked with the Bhutto murder. His message? Be patient, be understanding, and don't push me. Mark Seddon, Al Jazeera.